Thank you so much, Thomas. What we're going to do now for the next section of the agenda is we've obviously heard a lot from you about what works and what doesn't work in telling sort of more impactful brand stories. And now we're actually going to go to a kind of real life case study with Anna from Closing the Loop. So we've heard a lot about why stories fall flat. We know that audiences are looking for something that feels a bit more real and relevant. And we know that particularly around topics like sustainability, potentially some things aren't working and actually the risk is kind of being ignored. So we've got this great case study that Anna's going to talk to us about. Anna and her team at Closing the Loop work closely with Vodafone in Germany, and they approached this challenge in a new way, and they looked at a way of building purpose and impact into brand storytelling through a program called One for One. So Anna, if I can come over to you, and maybe you could just tell us a bit more about the campaign and the backstory to One for One and what it's all about.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Rose. I think it's very nice to hear everything, how you guys set the scene, and to be able to then come with this example where I think hits quite some high notes of what we've been discussing. Let me very briefly explain to you what we do, because we're not a marketing agency, we're not a PR agency, we are a social enterprise based in the Netherlands, and we help tech brands add a green credential to their existing offer. On one hand, we help them without changing the purchase experience so that it's still very easy for the consumer or customer to purchase their devices, but we do enhance the proposition because for many, green credentials are becoming more and more important. And we do this with one very simple service, simple but powerful, called One for One. For every new device sold by our customers, we collect and recycle an equal amount of electronic waste. And we collect this waste from countries where that waste would normally not be collected. So then you can think of the global south, right? Africa, but there's also Southeast Asia. There's enough waste problems in all kinds of waste streams. We focus on electronic waste. And what is so interesting about the story is that although the core of what we do doesn't scream marketing, thanks to our partners in Vodafone Germany, it has proven to be very powerful marketing, because they took our story, they implemented One for One. They've been doing it since about 2 years. We just passed the 2.7 million collection milestone. That means we have collected 2.7 million broken phones for them and recycled them, which is, well, rather a great milestone to have. And their promise is for every direct customer that buys a new phone with them through their direct channels, we collect an equal amount of broken phones in Ghana and in Nigeria. At the beginning of the journey, they saw potential, and we had some really nice PR releases that caught some attention. But then as we started having more milestones that were also impact-related milestones, where we started helping them understand the impact it had in the local communities with the people that collects the phones for them, we created a very nice PR campaign around a documentary where we brought our client, of course, Vodafone Germany, but also an influencer, a rapper called Oli Pay from Germany, and we did a small 7-minute documentary and a whole campaign around it. And what stands out of this effort is the connection and the simplicity to that one moment of purchase. We didn't went into promising a world without e-waste, or we didn't went into saying Vodafone is the best you can ever have. I don't think even Vodafone was mentioned a lot throughout the campaign, and they gave the light to the people that made it possible, and that is our collectors in Ghana, our local partners in Accra, how the whole journey continues. And because it's a journey, it gives for more stories, right? So at 1.5 million, the campaign happened. It went really well. We got some very nice communication marketing awards that you normally don't see this type of campaigns get. So it also shows there is appetite for this called sort of innovative storylines that you don't expect from an operator. But next to that, it's the gift that keeps giving. You know, the next milestone, we can also talk about what happens to the recycling. The next milestone, we can talk about a little bit more in depth about the lives we touch in the countries where we collect. And at the same time, they use it next to their other initiatives, because they have many other initiatives about extending life of your phone or repairing your phone. They also use this to educate their target audience, and pairing it to that moment of happiness when you're getting a new device. You got the device you want, how you want it, in the service you want it, at the price that sort of fits what you need. And on top of that, you got one for one. So I think that made it it is still a very straightforward, no long-term, let's say, proposition that has been very fun to work with, but also very nice to see being lifted off the ground.
Thanks for that, Anna. Thanks. It's good to hear the overview of the campaign. How important do you think the choice of influencer is in the campaign? So I know you chose not to really work with a sustainability person so much as a broader talent, if you like. And how important do you think that is to sort of the overall success of the campaign, using different voices and a sort of wider influence pool?
I think it brought the third perspective. You have the brand, which is a big brand, which falls into maybe people being tired of listening to big brands. I cannot say if that's the case for them, but I'm just putting them in the bucket of big brand. You have the social enterprise, which in many ways we don't yet have a voice. And then you have the influencer, in this case, Olipay, that indeed he's not specifically talking about sustainability, but he was interested in testing what that would be. And to be honest, I don't think anybody else but someone like him could have done a better job in showing a very real documentary. So it didn't feel fake. And you see him sweating in the 35 degrees landfills that we went to. And so I think it did bring a bit that reality and that connection to you, and not to the world and the business people, but literally to you. So that really added like that extra secret ingredient to the recipe.
And do you think the part of the success of the campaign was that you working together with Vodafone didn't see it really as an environmental campaign or an environmental PR campaign, but as a kind of integral part of people's relationship with this precious thing that we all carry around in our pockets and looking at all the time? How important was it that you didn't go into it as an environmental marketing campaign?
Oh, that's a wonderful question, because I think it makes a big difference. What we do is not the end goal of everything. What we do at Closing the Loop. So it's a first step to something. And they see that. They see that as a first step to education, as a first step to connection, and then bring on maybe the bigger changes that they probably will be doing. So for us, working closely with them and helping them see that the connection should not be purely and only about sustainability was a big part of the work we did at the beginning, because it's the logical route to take. And the other thing is, it's a story that evolves. So whatever we thought it would be on day one, when we worked on the first ever PR press release, is a very different mindset when you bring to them the number of 1.5 million, the testimonials of the people that collected for them. And that also helped them see the connection and a bigger connection to their consumer as well, the human angle of it. So I think that this has made the whole difference. It has really made the whole difference that it has remained very simple, very, very simple. No big promises and no big request from the consumers either, because unfortunately, and I really say that, people say they want to, but they don't do it, right? You still want the best and the greatest. And this is me now personally speaking, maybe not on behalf of Closing the Loop. I don't think people will stop buying anytime soon. So expecting that that's going to be the message is just another message around blaming and shaming. and it's, people still want the greatest and the latest and the best. So let's see how we can turn that into a trigger for more. And I think Vodafone has seen that as well.
And it sounds like this campaign is a really good example of what Thomas was talking about earlier, which is the brand kind of being by your side as a consumer on the journey and almost taking action on your behalf. So by, as people upgrade their phones or get a new phone, ultimately 1for1 means they can do that without having to feel guilty about it or to feel anxiety about it, because actually the action's kind of been taken on their behalf. So I think that, it feels like it connects very much to what Thomas was saying earlier.
And it also triggers, right? Triggers to maybe investigate more, triggers to, indeed consider refurbish, it triggers to other options, other ideas. So I think it's a very simple seed to plant because it's not a painful seed. And there's many ways of doing what we do, but we found that, and I think I'll say that a thousand times more, simplicity has been such an important part of everything with Vodafone, with any of our customers, because who wakes up thinking today I'm gonna end electronic waste problem? Very few. We do, but not many more. So how to help them see it and put it in very simple terms so that other understands, especially after the CO2 madness. I still don't understand it, right? So we need to make sustainability relatable, understandable, and we need to see the value that it has to bring a surprise factor in your brand stories and bring it at the core. Because if it continues to be a parallel avenue, well, it will continue to drive further away. So
Got it. Okay, that's great. Thank you, Anna. So just before we bring Thomas back in, just to kind of wrap up on the 1for1 campaign, because I think it's such a useful case study for all of us who are working in this space. If you could say the 2 or 3 key success factors, we've already talked about simplicity a bit, but what were the couple of other things that you would say were really intrinsic to making it work?
I think the direct connection with our consumer action. So an action releases a trigger, and it's a very simple connection. So again, simplicity. And I think in terms of more on the creation part, we did work a lot together, closely together. We, on our side, have the knowledge of the story that we can help them tell. Their core is not to tell our story or this type of stories, but that is our day-to-day. So we found each other in very good position to help each other out. And they had the power to amplify it, and they had the power to make the documentary, which made the whole difference. So I think the collaboration between two partnerships between innovators, small companies, big companies, and bringing that story together was definitely also a big success factor of it, and continues to be, because we continue to work together to the next milestone and the next piece that we want to bring out this year, for example.
And Anna, what do you think are the barriers that are stopping companies exploring these kind of partnerships with startups and scale-ups that are doing really interesting things, and how might those barriers be overcome?
I think as long as it doesn't make business sense, as long as the offer that companies like where I work don't bring a very logical advantage beyond the green, is very difficult to make business. And I think that's the reality for many. I think as long as the marketeers, brand managers, PR, all the people that are in the creative angle of how to tell stories don't see the huge potential that impact stories have, and don't connect it to the core of their storytelling, then it will continue to be an alienated topic. And that makes it very difficult for companies like mine to connect with them, because but we already have a promise and a brand, and we don't talk about this and we don't talk about that. So it takes time to understand and see the potential, but that's well, that's I think one of the biggest challenges that we accept to have, and that we try to have when we talk to clients. We will never be part of their core story because, yeah, they sell electronics, not what we do. But we definitely think, and that applies to any other social enterprise or type of company like ours, but finding the way to treat it as a business, to treat it as another great specification that can enhance your offer, makes the difference.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about the one-for-one story, is the way it's kind of an intrinsic value of the phone, in a way that, you know, your phone has so many other intrinsic benefits. Making one-for-one a part of that instead of a kind of green add-on is a really great kind of storytelling mechanic, essentially.